Never did I imagine I would be the woman weeping for her former love while her husband lay peacefully in the adjacent room. Yet, here I find myself, grasping my phone at 3 a.m., tears mingling with the remnants of mascara on my cheeks. My name is Leah, I'm 33 years old, and my life has just unraveled in the most unforeseen manner. It began as an ordinary Tuesday. As I perused my Facebook feed over lunch, it caught my eye. A message from Jess, a girl I once knew through Nate. Rest in peace, Jake Reynolds. It's hard to fathom that you're truly gone. My heart came to a halt, breath escaped me. Nate is gone? My Nate? Well, it's been 8 years since my Nate, but still. A tragic car accident occurred, resulting in a head-on collision that claimed a life at the scene. I pored over the words repeatedly, striving to unravel their meaning as a tightening sensation gripped my chest. I phoned in sick and made my way home in a fog, tears cascading down my cheeks. Memories flooded my mind, Nate guiding my fingers on the guitar, the warmth of his kiss as the clock struck midnight on New Year's Eve, the comfort of his arm around me during his sister's wedding. It baffled me to comprehend the reasons behind my reaction. This was the individual I had described to Danielle as toxic, manipulative, essentially the epitome of a dreadful boyfriend. The man I claimed to have moved on from, thankful to have left behind. Upon arriving home, I secluded myself in the bathroom, retrieving the photographs stored away in a concealed folder on my phone. For years, I've maintained to Danielle that I erased every trace of Nate from my life, but that was nothing more than a fabrication. As I perched on the cold bathroom floor, my fingers danced over the screen, tears streaming down my face, muffling my cries with a towel pressed tightly against my lips. When Daniel finally returned from work, I had managed to compose myself just enough to appear somewhat presentable. When he inquired about my day, I casually noted that someone I once knew had passed away, conveying a sense of sadness without the weight of devastation. I was unable to reveal the truth to him, that it felt as though someone had torn my heart from my chest. Under the cover of darkness, I feigned slumber, waiting for Andrew's rhythmic snoring to fill the room. Once I was certain he was lost to dreams, I quietly slipped out of bed, my phone in hand. I felt an insatiable urge to delve deeper, to validate the authenticity of what lay before me. In the solitude of the bathroom, tears streamed down my face for what felt like an eternity, as I scrolled through the old texts I had kept hidden away, messages in which Nate had declared I was his forever. Time seemed to slip away from me, and then, as if on cue, the bathroom door swung open to reveal Andrew, his expression a mix of confusion and concern. Is that you, Leah? The clock strikes 3 in the morning. What is happening? He had already glimpsed the images on my phone. Could it be the former partner? The one you frequently mention, the abusive one? You fail to grasp the situation. I erupted, a surge of anger coursing through me at his unwelcome presence amidst my sorrow. This is intricate. You're weeping over a man you once described as the most despicable person you've ever encountered, Daniel remarked, his tone sharpening in a way that grates on my nerves. What is it that I fail to grasp? Words failed me. How do you approach your husband to confess that perhaps you exaggerated the truth about your ex? Perhaps you didn't wait. Was it a couple of years after the breakup, before you met him, as you always claimed? Was it more along the lines of 3 weeks? He's gone, Andrew, I stated instead. Could you allow me a moment to digest that without turning the focus onto yourself? The following day, I once more dialed in to report my illness. Instead, I found myself lost for hours in Nate's social media, immersed in the flood of tributes that were cascading in. All around, people are sharing stories of his remarkable character, his incredible talents, and the vibrant spirit he brought to life. There was nothing about the creature I had painted for Daniel over the years. I discovered that I was crafting an extensive piece about Nate, reflecting on his uniqueness and the enduring presence he holds within me. I incorporated heart emojis along with a quote reflecting on the lasting impact some individuals have on our lives. I shared it impulsively, not considering who might come across it, Daniel included. By the afternoon, I found myself immersed in message threads with individuals I hadn't conversed with in years, each of us recounting tales of Nate. I never once brought up the emotional abuse I had confided in Danielle about. It was as if that version of Nate had never been real. Engrossed in the act of reconnecting, I failed to notice Andrew's early return home. He lingered in the doorway, observing as I hastily wiped away tears, fingers flying across the keyboard to reach out to Nate's college roommate. All day long, you've been on Facebook discussing him, Daniel murmured softly. It was evident that he had come across my post. You described him as a figure often misjudged, yet undeniably the most radiant presence in any space. That's not the way you've portrayed him to me over the last 8 years. People are intricate beings, I remarked, shutting my laptop with a sense of protectiveness. It's unreasonable to think I would remain indifferent when someone I once held dear passes away. Do you truly care? Yesterday, it seemed you hardly recognized it. Now you find yourself composing love letters to the essence of his memory. That evening, following yet another heated exchange in which I charged Daniel with insensitivity while he countered by suggesting I was concealing something, I lingered until he succumbed to slumber and quietly made my way into our walk-in closet. Nestled deep in the shadows, behind my winter boots, lay a small box I had concealed throughout our entire marriage. Within lay concert ticket stubs, a necklace gifted by Nate, letters he had penned for me, and a delicate sketch he had created of us. Daniel was completely unaware that such things were even in existence. I had informed him that I had incinerated it all following the end of my relationship with Nate. I found myself nestled in the closet, the box ajar, my fingers grazing each item as memories flooded back. In reality, I had never truly come to terms with the end of our relationship. It was simpler to cast Nate in the role of the villain, to convince Danielle and me that he was abusive and controlling. It was simpler to avoid the truth that we had been discussing marriage before a foolish argument escalated beyond reason. It feels simpler to acknowledge that I may have rushed into things with Danielle as a means to evade the hurt. The following morning, I found myself awakening to Andrew's gaze fixed upon me from his side of the bed, his eyes brimming with unspoken inquiries I was reluctant to address. "You were speaking in your dreams," he murmured softly. You uttered his name. My cheeks flushed with a deep sense of humiliation. I muttered a vague excuse about needing coffee and nearly dashed to the kitchen, yet Daniel trailed behind me. "Leah, what's happening? And spare me the empty words, for we both understand the truth of the matter." A part of me yearned to reveal the truth in that moment, to lay bare the timeline, to explain how Nate and I truly parted ways, to share everything. What comes next? Could it be that I married Daniel in a moment of rebound? That appeared to be a rather questionable notion. "I'm merely in the midst of contemplation," I remarked, my attention fixated on the precise measurement of coffee grounds. It's strange how the passing of someone from your past can stir up memories and emotions long buried. The things you shared with me were truly dreadful. Daniel continued to press on. "You mentioned that he exerted control over you, that he distanced you from your friends, and that you endured a year of unhappiness during your time together." I found it impossible to meet his gaze. Relationships possess a complexity all their own. It's really not that complicated, Leah. He was either the abusive figure you've described for 8 long years, or he was not. Which one is it? I brought the coffee pot down with more force than I intended. "Could you please allow me a bit of distance? He has just passed away." In a moment of impulse, I found myself joining a private Facebook group dedicated to supporting widows and sharing the weight of grief. I was aware of the impropriety. I was not a widow, not by any stretch of the imagination. Yet, I found myself yearning for conversations with those who could truly grasp the depths of profound sorrow. In my introductory post, I was somewhat ambiguous, mentioning that I had lost my partner and was attempting to navigate the shock. Throughout the day, I immersed myself in the grief forum, sharing my heart with strangers about my profound love, lost far too early. With every message, I found myself sinking further into a dreamlike portrayal of my relationship with Nate, blissfully overlooking the significant arguments, the moments he vanished for days, and the true cause of our breakup. It was only when I heard the sound of Andrew's key turning in the lock that evening that I came to the startling realization: I had devoted 9 hours to crafting an alternate reality in the digital realm. I hastily shut the laptop, yet not before he caught a fleeting glimpse of my actions. "Are you really part of a support group for widows?" he inquired, his tone laced with a blend of incredulity and pain. "Leah, you are not bound to him by marriage. You weren't even in a relationship with him when he passed away. For 8 years, you have stood by my side." At that moment, I utterly unraveled. "You have no right to dictate the way I mourn. This represents a significant loss for me." "A significant loss?" "For 8 long years, you've recounted how he was the most devastating event in your life." Perhaps I was not entirely truthful. I cried out impulsively. The ensuing silence was overwhelming. Daniel gazed at me as if I were a stranger, and not in a favorable light. "What other falsehoods did you share?" he inquired softly. Saturday morning dawned, bringing with it a tightness in my stomach. On the day of Nate's funeral, I found myself retreating to the guest room for the past 3 nights, evading Andrew's probing inquiries. Our conversations had been minimal, limited to the logistics of bathroom schedules and the responsibility of feeding the cat. I am attending the funeral. I made my announcement over coffee. Would you do me the honor of accompanying me? The journey to the funeral home was fraught with tension. The funeral home brimmed with people. Nate seemed to have been even more beloved than I recalled. Family photographs adorning the walls, cherished melodies drifting gently through the room, and the familiar scent of his cologne subtly permeating the atmosphere. Is that you, Leah? Oh my goodness, I can hardly believe you've arrived. Megan, the cousin of Nate, was the one in question. In an instant, she enveloped me in a warm embrace, catching me off guard. His joy at your arrival would be immeasurable. He held you in such high regard. I referred to Danielle as my husband, but the tone that escaped my lips was strange and dismissive, unfamiliar even to me. Megan flashed him a brief smile before redirecting her attention to me. Have you had a chance to glimpse the photo display? A dedicated segment captures the essence of your Colorado adventure. Mom nearly left them out, considering Kylie, but he appeared so joyful in those photographs. My heart quickened as she guided me toward a tapestry of images. Nate and I stood at the summit of a mountain, his arm wrapped around my waist, our hair tousled by the wind, both of us beaming with joy. I sensed Andrew's body tense beside me. I thought you mentioned that trip was with your college roommate, he murmured. The ceremony unfolded in a haze of sorrow and heartfelt remembrances. One by one, individuals rose to share their thoughts on Nate's boundless creativity, his unwavering generosity, and his vibrant passion for life. As I wove each tale, I sensed Andrew's gaze upon me, measuring this embodiment of righteousness against the cunning, self-serving fiend I had painted. Then Kylie, the beloved fiancée, rose to share her words. She possessed a beauty that seemed effortless, a quality I have yet to attain. Tall and graceful, her clear eyes sparkled with warmth, and her gentle voice resonated with a soothing charm. She recounted the moment she first met Nate 2 years prior, highlighting his unwavering patience and kindness. She reflected on how he had supported her during her mother's illness, always offering help without a hint of complaint. Nate showed me the true essence of love, she confessed, her voice trembling, how it is founded on respect and honesty, and the commitment to be present for one another each day. A wave of shame washed over me, leaving me feeling utterly unwell. That was not the way I had depicted our relationship to Daniel in the slightest. Following the service, we took our place in the reception line to extend our heartfelt condolences. Upon our arrival at Nate's parents' home, his mother's eyes sparkled with a sudden recognition. Emily exhaled softly, enveloping me in a hug that lingered far beyond the ordinary. I had always envisioned our reunion, yet I never imagined it would unfold in this manner. He kept every one of your letters tucked away in his memory box, you know, she whispered, the ones from the days when you were dreaming of a future together. I nodded, my voice caught in my throat, fully conscious of Andrew's presence behind me, absorbing every syllable. Just as we neared the exit, I found myself staring directly at Kylie. You must be Leah, she murmured softly. Nate shared some insights about you. Did he? With a hint of astonishment, I inquired, and she responded with a nod. He mentioned that you were his first true love and that you imparted valuable lessons about his desires in a relationship. As we journeyed home, Daniel remained quiet for the first hour, each of us lost in our own thoughts. At last, he uttered a word. Leah, the man they spoke of, the mentor, the fervent creator, the devoted partner, he is not the same individual you have portrayed for the past 8 years. People evolve, I murmured softly. Or perhaps people are not entirely truthful, he retorted. Could you tell me when you and Nate ended things before we met? The inquiry I had been fearing. I gazed through the window, observing the highway signs dissolve into a haze. After 3 weeks, I finally confessed, not 2 years as I had previously claimed. Were you, perhaps, engaged as his mother suggested? Not officially, I replied cautiously, yet we were in discussions, exploring potential venues. Was it you who ended things with him, or did he take that step first? It was mutual, I asserted, a statement that held a grain of truth, yet failed to capture the entirety of the narrative. Was he truly abusive, controlling, embodying all the things you've claimed over the years? My gaze was averted from him. He had a tendency to be challenging, fervent. In the final moments, our clashes intensified. That differs significantly from being abusive, Leah. I understand, I murmured. An hour later, Nate's sister Amanda made her entrance at our house, carrying a small box in her hands. These were discovered in his storage unit. He seemed to hold on to it all, without exception. Within lay photographs, correspondence, and birthday greetings. Everything from me to Nate. At the bottom lay a small jewelry box, holding the promise ring he had gifted me for our second anniversary, the very one I had hurled at him in the heat of our last argument. The sight resurrected the memory with striking clarity. Once Amanda departed, I found myself seated on the living room floor, sifting through the contents of the box. There existed birthday cards I had penned for him, nestled within were inside jokes that had slipped my mind, and vows of eternity that I had shattered. Amidst my cherished keepsakes lay documents that left me utterly astonished. A receipt for the engagement ring he had intended to present to me that fateful weekend when everything fell apart. A lease application for the apartment we explored together. Printouts of wedding venues adorned with his handwritten notes. In that moment, I stumbled upon something that took my breath away. A life insurance policy designating me as the beneficiary, dated merely a month prior to our separation and seemingly left unaltered. The documents indicated that I was entitled to $250,000. My eyes were fixed on the document, a wave of disbelief washing over me. What could have compelled him to maintain my status as his beneficiary throughout all these years? Had he overlooked the need to alter it? Was it intentional, perhaps? A week slipped by, and still, Danielle had not returned home. The insurance payout arrived more swiftly than anticipated. A direct deposit that instantly transformed my bank account balance, doubling it in the blink of an eye. I had kept it from Andrew. How might I? Hey, the ex-boyfriend I seemed to still have feelings for left me $250,000. It didn't strike me as the best way to initiate a conversation. On Friday evening, we settled on a rendezvous at a serene restaurant. Upon my entrance, I found Daniel seated at a corner table. He appeared weary yet poised. I've been doing a lot of thinking, he said, turning his glass slowly. Who we are. Concerning the nature of reality and illusion. I reached out to your friend Jess, he continued, and a chill coursed through my veins. Jess was aware of it all, the true sequence of events, and just how swiftly I had plunged into a relationship with Andrew. She remarked that you selected me for my safety following the tumultuous ride with Nate. I was the one you chose for stability, not the one who ignited your desires. The words lingered in the air, harsh in their precision. Years ago, I had shared all those thoughts with Jess, when the scars from Nate were still raw. Leah, I must ask, did you choose to settle for me? The bluntness of the inquiry took me by surprise. Finally, I confessed, I don't know. Upon our first encounter, I found myself engulfed in pain and bewilderment. Nate and I shared an intense, passionate, and at times toxic connection. You, however, were something entirely different. Consistent and dependable. Safe, Daniel supplied, his voice devoid of inflection. Indeed, I conceded, secure. In that moment, it was essential for me. Daniel let out a weary sigh. Therein lies the crux of the matter, doesn't it? You never paused to discern your true desires, instead, you hastily moved from Nate to me, bypassing any real contemplation. Daniel spoke with a hint of gravity, there's something else you should know. I had a conversation with Kylie, Nate's fiancée. An unsettling twist gripped my stomach, a manifestation of my rising anxiety. What had Sophia confided in him? She revealed to me a selection of Nate's journals, where he chronicled your relationship, detailing aspects you conveniently omitted from your narrative. A wave of nausea washed over me, leaving me with an unsettling feeling. Which components? It was you who betrayed him, not the other way around. As you once ominously suggested, harm would come to yourself should he choose to depart from your life. Just as you hurled his promise ring at him and severed all communication before he had the chance to clarify the message you stumbled upon, which, in reality, was from his female cousin regarding a surprise party for you. Every revelation struck with the force of a tangible impact. I had contorted the narrative so thoroughly in my thoughts, and in what I had conveyed to Andrew, that I had nearly convinced myself of my own rendition. Did you ever truly love me, Leah? Or was I merely a refuge, a tranquil shore where you sought solace from your remorse? The question shattered a barrier within me. Did I truly love Andrew? Indeed, in my own manner. Yet, could it truly compare to the profound, all-encompassing love that had enveloped my very being for Nate? The sort that left me weeping in restrooms and making pilgrimages to graves even 8 years on? I truly love you, I declared, and I meant every word. Yet, we both sensed the unvoiced tension lingering in the atmosphere. Merely not in the manner you cherished him. Daniel completed it on my behalf. Daniel retrieved an envelope from the depths of his jacket pocket. Within lay images I had never encountered, snapshots from a social media profile that was entirely unfamiliar to me. Their portrayal of Nate and me captured the darker moments, me unleashing my frustration at him during a party, tears streaming down my face in a public spectacle, and me clinging to another guy while Nate observed from a distance. Danielle elucidated that Sophia possessed these. Nate preserved them as poignant reminders of the reasons it was for the best that you both parted ways. He referred to it as his reality check, a folder he turned to whenever nostalgia for your relationship washed over him. I gazed at the images, struggling to identify the tumultuous, intense young woman I once was. Is that truly the way Nate perceived me? Not as the profound love he had lost, but rather as the peril he had narrowly escaped? I'm moving out, Daniel murmured softly. I deserve a partner who prioritizes me, not one who merely accepted me as a fallback when their initial choice faltered. Are you suggesting it's finished, just like that? I inquired, a sense of dread tightening in my throat. Isn't that precisely what you did with Nate? It appears that concluding matters abruptly, without engaging in conversation, has become your modus operandi. He mentioned that he was transferring to a job in Denver. A new beginning, just like that? So, you're embarking on a journey across the country? The irony of your distress over another's decision to make a clean break does not escape me, he remarked, a subtle, melancholic smile gracing his lips. My love for you, Leah, was absolute. I simply longed for it to have sufficed. 2 months following Andrew's relocation to Denver, the divorce was officially concluded. He made no requests, neither for the house nor for a portion of the insurance money he would later discover, nor even for the furniture we had chosen together. He yearned for escape. I would wager everything on the fact that I could no longer endure that place, engulfed by echoes of a union founded on deception and evasion. I decided to step away from my job for a while, utilizing a portion of Nate's insurance funds to grant myself the space needed to contemplate my next steps. On what would have marked my 9th anniversary with Andrew, I found myself making my way to the cemetery where Nate lay at rest. The grave now bore a dignified headstone, inscribed with his full name and dates, accompanied by a poignant quote, "Live with passion." I retrieved my phone and accessed my private collection of Nate photos for what felt like the final time. I navigated through them at a leisurely pace, permitting myself to recall both the joyful and painful instances, free from the lens of victimhood that had clouded my perspective for far too long. Subsequently, I removed the folder. It was not a grand display of finality, rather, it was a modest stride toward truth, a recognition that the past was immutable, existing only to be comprehended. As I departed from the cemetery, fully aware that this would be my final visit, an undeniable change stirred within me. Not quite forgiveness, as I hadn't yet earned that grace, but perhaps a sense of acceptance. Embracing the reality that the past remains unalterable. Coming to terms with the pain I inflicted on those I professed to cherish. Recognizing that the unifying factor in my unsuccessful relationships was myself. A year had passed since Nate's death when an email from Sophia landed in my inbox. She was curating a memorial art exhibition dedicated to Nate's creations. She inquired whether I would be willing to provide a statement for the program, given my acquaintance with him. Not long after, a wedding invitation from Daniel found its way to me. In Denver, he encountered a pediatric nurse by the name of Claire. I dispatched a gift, yet chose to decline the invitation. Instead, I composed a letter that had been in the making for months, crafted with the guidance of my therapist. A comprehensive and candid reflection on the deceptions and manipulations that marked our marriage, a recognition of the hurt I inflicted, and a heartfelt admission of regret, offered without any anticipation of absolution. You were worthy of far more than what I offered, I penned. It brings me joy to see you thriving with someone who prioritizes you above all else. He did not reply directly to the letter, however. A month later, I found a succinct email waiting for me. I appreciate your candor. It provided assistance beyond your understanding. I hope you find tranquility along your path. It wasn't quite forgiveness, but it was something more profound. A modest recognition that while the past remained unchangeable, I could still embrace it with sincerity. I found myself in a state of exploration, grappling with my identity beyond the confines of a relationship that once shaped me. I was on a journey of self-discovery, learning to embrace the truth rather than the comforting narratives I had constructed. For the first time in my adult life, I found myself standing still, no longer fleeing from my mistakes or cloaked in the comfort of convenient lies. I wasn't sure if I would ever truly arrive at this moment, but here I was, facing the truth head on. Though it lacked the warmth of a joyful conclusion, it ultimately embraced a truth that could no longer be ignored.